This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. What's wrong here? Gotta get this disentangled. Uh-oh, we got a mess. Let me see what the problem is. Let's jump. Alright. I think we're disentangled. Okay. 28th of January, it's 9:31 in the morning, and it's kind of nippy, but the sun's out, so it's not going to be that nippy. It's 57, high of 66, sunny. Be a nice day. Won't be that warm, but nice. No rain. Just I believe when Yeshua appears, we'll have the early and the latter rain, and that will restore water to the agriculture. All right, we're going to go into Bible work later on, and today we're going to do Bible prophecy, but we're going to cover what Trump really seems to have been doing with Gaza and how he got Netanyahu to go along with this retarded, awful for Israel ceasefire. And we're going to, Trump's plans are kind of becoming rather obvious. Trump did it, or he's going to do an executive order. I think he did it for America to set up an Iron Dome system. So rest assured that it's likely going to be Israel's Iron Dome, but more than that, it's going to be Israel's Iron Beam, which is the laser system that we've already tested in prototypes and it works. And we're in production, and I don't know when we're going to have them, but we're supposed to get them in 2025. When? Nobody told us. So I don't know what's going on. But I'm sure Israel's got them working avidly on that. So that's more than likely what Trump's going to get out of Israel is the Iron Beam. See, the Iron Beam costs you maybe $1 a shot because it's just going off electricity. It's on a mobile platform, and it has a generator, and it could shoot, I would guess, 4, 5, 6 rockets or missiles down in a minute, and it costs you about $1 a shot. And probably the unit would probably shoot down 50 or 100,000 of these things before it had to be replenished, change the laser and all that. So why mess with the Iron Beam, the Iron Dome? Okay, so we're also going to talk about the Mexican cartels shooting at the Border Patrol people from Mexico into the United States, and the Border Patrol returned fire, which under Biden I don't think would have happened. We don't know if any of the cartel members got hit. We don't know, but the Border Patrol guys are safe. And the Mexican military is putting IEDs, improvised explosive devices, in Mexico near the border, like booby traps, to stop Americans from coming in. Okay. And Iran has already received several, we don't know how many, probably between 3 and 6 as a guess, SU-35 fighter jets from Russia. These are not Russia's most advanced fighter jets. I don't believe they're stealth at all. And they're not up to the F-15s, the F-16s, and the F-35s, and the F-22s, and all this other stuff. Israel has no F-22s, but they have F-15s, F-16s, and F-35s. But they're probably 4 or 5 times better than the jets that they had. And Iran has been building other new weapons, which we're going to talk about, and we're going to see what Trump and Iran, they're on a collision course. and Netanyahu is going to the White House next week. He's supposed to come back to Israel on Wednesday, so it's probably to leave Sunday or Monday, I'm guessing. But that, I believe, amongst other things, is going to be dealing with the attack on Iran. Remember, the other day, America transferred 9 aircraft refueling tankers to Germany. Now, why? It's probably because Israel is going to be involved in the attack with America, and they need these. So Israel already has probably about that many aircraft refueling tankers, someplace around there, maybe as high as 12, maybe as low as 6 or 8 or 7, I don't know. But for a large onslaught on Iran, we're going to need more. Now, America may not join in, but it's going to be rather sketchy for Israel to knock out the nuclear facilities because they could go down, 300 feet or more, and you need at least 5,000-pound bunker busters dropped in a series, one, a minute or two later, another, and you keep getting the hole deeper and deeper. Our planes don't carry those 5,000 pounders, they carry 2,000-pound bunker busters. So I imagine if you dropped 8 or 10 in sequence, you'd get there. Maybe even 6. They're precision, so they can keep hitting the same spot. But I have a feeling America's going to bring the 30,000-pound bombs with the B-52s or some other jet, in my hunch, and they might just be looking for Israel to knock out all the radar. And then Israel's also going to hit missile, banks of missiles, missile storage facilities, factories, things like drones, and as many weapons as they can. That's my hunch as to how it'll play. On the other hand, Trump may keep Israel out of it. I don't know. Or he may keep America out of it. I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see. But I'm reasonably sure it has to do with Iran. Trump's got a thorn in his side with Iran, and he doesn't talk much about it, gives no details. So I think that's what it is. Okay, I'm going to go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream and put my post up, and we'll get going. And it gives people a chance to come in. I'm going to go into the live stream. Yeah, we got sound and picture. I'm not blocking you, but I'm just removing your posts because of the language. But you're free to post, but just don't post with bad language, okay? Stockton, I've been in Stockton many times. That didn't go right. I hit the wrong, but okay. Let me get my post up. I'll go as quick as I can. There's so much happening. Roadblocks getting set up on interstates in America. We'll cover all this. I'll get my email address up there if anybody wants to ask questions and they don't want to put it in the chat for privacy. you can email me. The same with prayer requests and toss requests. I don't have any prayer requests today. Okay, I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. So, as you know, Israel signed a lousy deal for the hostages with Hamas. We're going to wind up releasing 1,900 plus hostages for 30 or so terrorists that are in Israeli prisons for about 30 hostages. I think the ratio is 30 to 1, 30 terrorist prisons for one hostage. And the deal is so bad, they're going to return 8 dead bodies of hostages. And as I understand the numbers, Israel's going to release 30 or 40 hostages for each dead body. So Israel, now remember when this ceasefire happened, this was with Biden and Trump's guy, Trump's envoy. Trump's envoy doesn't have the weight of Biden because Trump was not yet in office when this happened. So, I think Trump told Israel, "Don't worry, just make a ceasefire, just get it done." And Netanyahu listened to him. And I think the side deal was this: Trump said, "I'm going to relocate, or will, together with Netanyahu, I guess, relocate the Gazans out of Gaza." So Trump approached Egypt and Jordan and asked them to accept an undisclosed amount of hostages. They both adamantly refused. Now, there could be a number of reasons for this. One is they're petitioning for a better offer from Trump, like what's in it for us? Weapons, money, whatnot, right? Or they don't want to do it, period. The Arab, is it the Arab League or one of these Arab state associations, which has 22 members, came out, now this was in the Muslim media, came out and told Trump that they oppose this and it's ethnic cleansing. Now, Trump is basing this on the fact that probably around 90% of the homes, office buildings, government buildings, stores, any kind of building in Gaza, it's approximately 90% are gone or damaged, seriously damaged. The hospitals are messed up. The World Health Organization, who now Americans are not allowed to communicate with or have any dealings with, said that it would take about $10 billion in 5 to 7 years to bring the hospitals back online because Hamas was using them as terrorists, as Hamas command posts and places to hide weapons, soldiers, stuff like that. Okay? So we had to strike them, and that was that. So the hospitals got destroyed. See, Hamas's mindset is we don't care if we get killed, we'll be martyrs, we'll immediately go to paradise and get 70 virgins. If we don't get killed, well, we're heroes, and that's good too. So they don't really care about the outcome of things. The idea of having the hospitals destroyed so that 2 million people in Gaza don't have hospitals is not relevant in their religion. Whatever their religion happens to be, it's Muslim, but in Muslim or Islam, there's numerous different divisions. You have Alawites, you have Druze, which are a type of Muslim, you have Shiite, you have Sunni, and you got one or two other little sects running around. So Sunnis and Shiites fight viciously amongst each other at times, so you don't know what all they really believe. So Trump is doubling down on the refusal of Jordan and Egypt to accept the hostages. Just an add-on. The terrorists being released from prison are supposedly going out of Israel to some extent anyway. I don't understand exactly why. But Turkey said they would accept some of them that are going to be released this week, I believe. Go figure. Syria doesn't want them. I don't think they're going to take them. So, one motive for not wanting them is they all want the destruction of Israel so a caliphate can be formed. There's basically two caliphates in play, two potential caliphates in play right now. One led by Turkey and the other one led by Iran. Those are the only two contenders. Turkey is more economically oriented, although he does a horrible job economically, and not as warmongering crazy and doesn't execute people as much as Iran does. Iran is a Shiite lunatic, and they execute people, and they don't care about civilians. They don't care about much of anything except war. Okay? So Satan has them in a full-time war mode. That's their whole life existence is war. Their economy is in very bad shape. Okay? So you have to understand this about BRICS, BRICS. Their members are now up to either, I think it's between 28 and 30. It's substantial, okay? And they'll probably take more members in the near future. And they have an alternative currency. They have a digital payment system, things like this, okay? And they want to be able to conduct trade amongst themselves without using the US dollar or the euro. This currency they're cooking up is backed by things that, as far as we can tell right now, gold would be part of it. So a country would have to set aside their gold reserves in their own vaults in their own country, set aside a pile of gold, and say this is to back, $5 billion of digital currency from BRICS, and BRICS had set the value. At this point, nobody's asking them to send the gold to Beijing or Moscow, where BRICS has their banks. It appears they're also going to allow them to back it with things like wheat, rice, agricultural crops. And we don't know what else yet. Or they might know, but we don't know. They're not talking openly about it. So it's sort of a backed currency, but it's a soft backed one. Because the BRICS organization itself would not be holding the gold or the wheat or rice or whatever it is. Okay. BRICS is a tool to destroy America. Now, this was started with Biden and built rapidly in the Biden days, which is now over. Biden was a weak guy, a weak person, I should say. And he didn't do much about it at all. He apparently wanted to see America go down. So I've told you that before. I think Biden was with the beast and Trump is with the whore. And the whore likes false Israel, false democracies, false religions. Okay. The beast system is more or less straight up idolatry with force. Okay. Extreme force and wars. So they're not interested in pulling the wool over the people's eyes and keep them in false religions. They're more interested in, pushing them into idolatry at the point of a bayonet or the barrel of a rifle. So there's the difference. The beast system is not very economically oriented, where the horse system is. The horse system tolerates Islamic dictators, which you see, they call them emirs, kings, whatever, princes. You see it in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. And they just hoard they hoard a large amount of wealth for themselves with multiple mansions and castles, or whatever. They don't have castles, but jet planes, yachts, elaborate lifestyles for the royal family, which can stretch out to cousins and whatnot. The beast system just wants everything in weapons and military. All right, there's a difference. Okay, so we know. Now I'm trying to put the pieces together, and you may have a little trouble following it. The idea that Iran and Russia had, along with China and North Korea, is to push the countries in the Middle East into BRICS, or at least forcing them to not sell oil for US dollars and euros. And the UAE has been doing that. They are in BRICS. Saudi's not in BRICS, but they have been not accepting oil and natural gas for dollars or euros. Now, they're pledging, I think, someplace minimally $500 or $600 billion investments in America. And Trump said he's going to get them to bang it up to $1 trillion. He might get them to do that. I don't know. And so that means they're going to, of course, start taking the dollar and the euro again. The UAE normally follows Saudi Arabia rather closely, so they'll do the same thing. Kuwait's in Trump's camp, as is Bahrain. Qatar is kind of lunatic-y, but they might side with Trump. I don't believe Egypt's going into BRICS. They sell oil. Yemen sells oil, but it's not substantial. They probably would go into BRICS. Lebanon is not in BRICS. Turkey is thinking about BRICS, but I think one of the countries vetoed them, so they're not able to get in. America has enough oil to take care of themselves, but they can't take up the slack from the entire Middle East. Okay. So who really needs oil badly in BRICS? Iran and India. They really need it badly. So now Trump is serenading India, and it looks like he's pulled Modi into his court, but that's the guy who runs India, Modi. But Modi's very slippery. He tries to make friends with everybody and do what's good for his own country. So, making nice, playing nice, and being nice to Trump doesn't mean he's going to leave BRICS. But I think Trump will make it clear to him that if he doesn't leave BRICS, you're not my friend. And Modi has to do some soul searching. He has to think about where he's better off, with BRICS or being with the Donald. What he's going to try to do is both. Be nice with Trump and let him stay in BRICS and continue exporting or importing into his country oil from Iran with an exemption from the sanctions. Now, would Trump do that? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't really think Trump is going to let Modi get away with that. It's going to hurt too much. Trump has a problem with Iran, a deep-seated, lengthy problem. He can't let this continue with Iran using proxies to destabilize the Middle East. What they want to do, what Iran and Russia want to do, is get all the Middle East to not sell oil and natural gas for the U.S. dollar or the euro. Okay? To reduce the demand for the dollar and diminish the value of it. Trump is well aware of this, and he's not going to take the bait. He's not going to let him do it. Iran is the hammer in the Middle East to threaten the big oil producer countries. The first one they go after is Saudi Arabia, which they've done through the Houthis in Yemen in the past. There were 2 missile attacks on the Aramco oil facility, which is Saudi Arabia's biggest oil refinery, and they didn't rebuild it rapidly because they were small attacks. One was 1 missile, the other was 2 missiles. But if the Houthis start raining drones and missiles down on this facility constantly, it will affect international oil prices. It will also scare the daylights out of the UAE, Jordan, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and they'll capitulate and give in. After Iran and Russia accomplish this, the next step will be to get these countries to reduce production. Trying to see if it's raining out. No, it's just wind. I hear something sounds like water. No. And when you reduce production, prices go up. And get America and Europe oil prices to spike up so much, their economies become basically collapsed. Now, people have told us, experts in this, that they can run prices up as high as $500 to $800 a barrel. If they get all these Arab states to cut their production by 35, 40%, I don't think they'll hit 800, but they might hit 300 or 400 a barrel. I think 300 would collapse the economies. Europeans are already paying $8, $9 a barrel. Okay? They're not going to make it. But Trump's not really that worried about Europeans right now. Trump's telling them that he's going to put tariffs on the whole EU because they've been taking advantage of America by so much. He hasn't done it, he's threatened it. Now, we don't know how it'll end. We just don't know. So the plan for Iran and Russia and China and North Korea is to hurt America this way. Because it's America that's hitting them with sanctions all the time and hurting their economies all the time. So if they don't get rid of America, they're going to be gone as countries. China is in extremely poor economic condition. If you study it, the real estate market's crashing, companies going bankrupt, all kinds of big problems. Russia is a mess. It's beyond economic problems. They lost 1 million soldiers in the Ukraine war. Why? Well, look how they treat Israel. Supporting countries that are dedicated to the destruction of Israel. Rain. Let me see if the weather says anything about rain. I checked. So, no, they're not talking about any rain. Let me check my other weather station. Trump has to break up this Middle East pact with Iran and Russia, otherwise it's going to hurt the U.S. dollar. Russia's already been dealt with by Ukraine, and now he's got to deal with Iran. This is very complicated. Iran just produced, this is what they say the specifications are, some big drone, they're calling it a Gaza drone. And they say it's very deadly and it could hit and it has, I don't know, something like 8 explosives it can deploy off of there. They're missiles or drop them. I don't know what they. Iran built a new drone ship. They says that holds 1,000 drones, and they built other new warships. And they say what they're really doing is they're using these new ships to prevent Trump from putting a blockade around the Straits of Hormuz, which is that more narrow area which connects the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman. In other words, where you're leaving the Persian Gulf. So what Trump would likely do to enforce sanctions on Iran, if you think Trump and Iran are going to sit down and make a deal about a number of things, one of which at the top of the list would be the nuclear energy they're generating, which is way, way beyond what the International Atomic Energy Commission wants them to generate. And they operated in open defiance with Biden, who seemed to have been against America. So Trump's got to reel him in, and I myself am firmly believe that Trump is not going to get anywhere by talking and negotiating with Iran. Okay? They're just not going to do it. Okay? They're crazy. And Trump, to enforce the sanctions, would put warships around the Straits of Hormuz to stop all Russian ships. Any ship going into Russia or coming out of Russia, out of Iran, any ship going into Iran or coming out of Iran would be stopped, and they would inspect it. And if it has oil or other things prohibited by sanctions, they would turn the ships away, send them back to Iran, or send them away from the Persian Gulf. I think Trump intends to do the same thing with the Suez Canal using Egypt and the Panama Canal. Then Trump's sanctions are not going to be absolute, but they'll be several times stronger than they are now, because to bypass Suez Canal, Panama Canal, it's going to add another 10 to 14 days onto the trip. You got to go around Africa, or you got to go around South America. That increases cost tremendously. And he doesn't want any of their warships passing through either. It's not going to make the sanctions absolutely effective with these waterways and stuff, but it'll help. Blocking the Straits of Hormuz, which is where, right by Iran, in the Persian Gulf, that would bring to an immediate halt Iran breaking the sanctions, which means they would go bust, which means the revolutionary forces in Iran would surge. They'd get 4 or 5 times the amount of people in a month or less, and they could become a serious threat to overthrowing the country, which we don't believe will happen, based on Bible prophecy. So how do you bust up Iran? Well, if they're not going to talk and listen to the hammer of the whole earth, America, then America's got to take them down. And that's why I think Netanyahu's going to the White House next week. It's to take down Iran, and they'll minimally hit the nuclear facilities, although I do believe they'll hit other facilities. Will they hit their warships? I don't know. I'm not expecting it. Now, are these warships a serious threat to aircraft carriers and destroyers and missile cruisers? Yes and no. The missile launching capability of the ships is probably dangerous, but I think the ships could handle it, okay? By keeping their distance and doing countermeasures and things like that. But when you add 1,000 drones into one ship at a time, what does a destroyer do if 87 drones are launched at it along with 6 or 8 missiles at the same time? Very serious threat to the warships, and they may actually hit some American warships and put them on fire and sink them. I'm serious. Now, America can take out the warships that Iran has. One easy, simple, bulletproof way for them to do it is to use the American submarines and just torpedo the ships. 2 torpedoes would be the standard practice, 2 torpedoes that hit, and the fires would break out. The munitions from the missiles and the drones would go up, and it would be over for them in a matter of, 10 minutes. It'd be a burning hulk. The ship may in fact sink. The ship, the large amounts of crew can get killed. And what's Iran going to do? Get on an airplane, a commercial aircraft, and book 50,000 soldiers and fly over to America and attack them? Well, they don't have any capability for that. The A-10 Warthogs can seriously shred Iranian warships in a matter of minutes. They have a big Gatling gun on it with 20 millimeter shells, which are huge. They can be uh, regular full metal jacket, armor piercing. They could be armor piercing incendiary. They could be explosive, which is not all that common. And it fires about 3,300, something like that, rounds a minute. And it sounds like even faster. Even faster than that sound. It's just incredibly fast. Okay, so the planes just fly at the ship. The range of 20 millimeters, 5 miles, so they probably get about a mile away or 2 miles out of it. They just tap. It's radar controlled gun. They just tap a few bursts at the ship, and the ship will go up in smoke. How else can they do it? F-35's. They're stealth. Bomb the ship with precision bombs, or more likely, get a reasonably good distance away from the ship, which would probably be miles, maybe 15 miles or 10 miles, and launch rockets off of the plane that would hit the ship and cause a lot of fires. They'd probably have to hit it with, 6 rockets or something like that to get the fires going, but that could be done. And then you have the possibility of submarines. You have the possibility of other fighter jets. You've got the possibility of destroyers and missile cruisers shooting missiles at the Iranian ships at a range further than the reach of the Iranian missiles. You could send drones at them. It's not a viable threat against America. But Iran is going down that path, obviously thinking they're dealing with Obama or Biden, not Trump. What I'm saying is Trump has to make an example of somebody to get these countries to listen to him, and he knows that. And I think the somebody he's going to make an example of is Iran, because he has a perfect alibi. We're not complying with international atomic energy standards, what we said we'd produce and whatnot. And, you can tell us all day long we're producing enough for a nuclear weapon. We don't care. We're doing it anyway. Go drop dead. That's their negotiation. We're a free sovereign state. You can't tell us what to do. Go fly a kite. So Trump has the perfect alibi. Well, if we didn't destroy them, they would have missiles and ICBMs and destroy America, destroy our allies in Europe and Israel and blah, 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 blah. And then when they're going to hit the nuclear facilities in Iran, I think they're going to weaken Iran further by hitting military targets, predominantly weapons and missile launchers and things like that. Would they also hit warships? This I don't know. My inclination is no, but I don't know. I don't think so. I doubt it a lot. And Israel and or America would take out a massive amount of radar in Iran, whatever they got left around that. The nuclear facility radars were destroyed a few months ago. It's possible they got new ones set up. Russia helped them, China helped them, and we don't have any intel on that. I don't have any open intelligence on that, so I don't know. I doubt it. It could be, but Israel's going to fly in and make sure there's no radar or anti-aircraft systems, so America could go in, or Israel would send the F-35's to knock out the radars, and then send F-15's and F-16's in after the radars were destroyed. It's very easy for Israel to get to Iran now because we could fly over Syria without a risk because there's no anti-aircraft systems there to speak of that are a threat, nor are there many radars left, if any. And then they would go probably over Iraq, which can't do much of anything to stop them, and then go into Iran. So the trip is shorter. So the dire need for the refueling tankers is a little bit diminished because they don't need as much fuel. Okay? They don't need as much fuel. So it helped a lot. Okay? Now, one thing about Trump's talking about an Iron Dome system on the border with Mexico. So he's realizing that making Mexico a state is not realistic. He doesn't talk about that anymore. And he's worried the cartels may get weapons from Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and start attacking American installations by the border. And that would explain the IEDs set up by the border, because if they do that, America's going to enter Mexico's borders and try to run them down and destroy the missile launchers and things like that. What might come about out of this, and I say might with a high level of might, maybe, I'm leaning heavily to this, and I've heard other people talk about it too. Trump will be looking for a buffer zone, either by negotiation or by force. Generally, a good buffer zone is 25 miles. Is Trump seriously going to think about slicing off 25 miles of Mexico? I don't know. He could get not much in terms of defending against missiles, drones, and aircraft, and artillery, and mortars, and stuff like that. Getting a buffer zone of 1 or 2 miles is no good. It's very good to stop people from getting across the border, because they make a no man's land, which is observed by cameras, drones, helicopters, whatever. And if anybody goes in, they set off sensors. And then the cameras pick up the exact location, and then we could deal with them by having a reception committee when they get over to America. Or we could also attack them in the buffer zone with artillery, for instance. Okay? So it would help with smuggling and things like that, but it's not going to stop. To get a dent on the missiles, you have to get up about, like the Litani River, 17, 18 miles. That gets rid of the Katyushas. It gets rid of the shoulder-fired missiles like anti-tank missiles and RPGs and stuff. And the anti-tank missiles, you get up to 5 miles. RPGs probably 1.5, 2, maybe more, depending on the RPG. Maybe they got some that can go 3, 4, 5 miles. And they got all different kinds, so I don't know. It's very possible. So you get rid of all of that. You get rid of mortars. You're probably going to get rid of most of the artillery, although artillery can go 25 miles. To get regular 155, millimeter artillery to go that far, you've got to lighten the payload in the shell, and then you don't have much energy left, to deliver things. So it's likely Trump's going to get some kind of a buffer zone. If he gets a 1 or 2 mile buffer zone, he stops the Mexican cartels from shooting into the Border Patrol people in America. Okay? He could do that probably with half a mile or three-quarters of a mile. If he gets 2 miles, he makes more gains. But if he gets 25 miles, he's in great shape. But I don't believe Mexico's let him do that. What are they going to do? Well, the way it would play is Trump is saying, you better control your people. If you don't control your people, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to build the buffer zone. And he'll do it publicly, and Mexico will probably think it's real when Trump moves 250 tanks and armored Humvees and armored personnel carriers and a bunch of troops into the theater there. You know, they'll get scared of that, and they'll make a deal with Trump of some sort. They'll get very scared of Trump. Trump's got to raise a hand to somebody in violence, or nobody's going to listen to him. What happens if the almost 30 people in BRICS say, look, Donald, you want to put 100% tax on us for selling our goods not in US dollars? Go ahead. We'll put 100% tax on you. All our countries. What does Donald do then? Well, he'll say, he'll double down. Let's make it a 200% tax, which is going to curtail the sale of their goods in America fantastically. I mean, it'll probably go down by 75 to 90%. There's a certain amount of stuff that people are going to need that they're going to buy in spite of the tariffs. But not much. And then Trump's going to sit there and see whose economy collapsed first. He'll take their temperature. What are they going to do? Well, I think they'll go the route of Colombia, where they just give in. He'll start telling their diplomats in America to close their embassies and leave. He'll just keep increasing the pressure. What Trump doesn't get is you can't go after your allies and your enemies at the same time as if they're enemies. And you can't take on everybody at the same time. I do not think it will work out for Trump. I don't think it's feasible. It's too much at one time. And Trump's not been in control of America a very long time. So I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking he's going to be able to pull this one off. I think he thinks he's going to pull it off. But I don't think he's going to get it. What he'll do, I don't know. But I think all roads lead to Trump making an example out of somebody with violence. And there's two contenders, Mexico and China and Iran. Those are the top two contenders. There's secondary contender, which would be Venezuela. Cuba, I don't think he's worried about. What does Cuba have? They have rum. They have coffee. They got some fruits and vegetables that I don't believe America buys. And I don't think he's that worried about it. Oh, there's cigars, but you know, the cigars are so expensive that nobody really buys that many. And I mean, you know, if you go to Cuba to buy these good Cuban cigars in Cuba, they're going to run, you know, $40, $50 a cigar. How many people buy that? Maybe you could buy their junkie cigars for $12 or $15, but I don't even think you get there, and I don't think they sell the junkie cigars to tourists. I think they only sell the expensive ones. So they export them to Europe, not to America. They go to Hong Kong, probably China. I believe the Cuban cigars are available in every country in the world except America. They're in the Caribbean, they're in Africa, but they're so expensive. The Cuban cigars are generally not considered to be what they were before the embargo in '59. Um, what happened is Castro turned after the '59, with the fighting. Castro at some point, I don't know when, in the '60s or something, maybe the '70s, turned into an anti-smoker, and he had them plant tomatoes and other crops where the tobacco was grown, and that ruined the the land, the tobacco crop. It never came out the way it used to be. As Castro rose to power, a lot of these cigar growers there that had been doing it for centuries. I mean, even in the 1800s, after the Civil War, Americans were running around smoking Cuban cigars. They probably cost 10 cents. As a kid, I had stamp and coin collections, and I used to keep some of my stuff in cigar boxes. And I used to go to this candy store that sold newspapers, magazines, and stuff. I used to go there, and they knew me, and I said, "Do you have any cigar boxes?" And once they sold all the cigars, they'd put the cigar boxes down and throw them out. And yeah, you're a nice kid in the neighborhood. Yeah, here's some cigar boxes. And then you 2 or 3, and they were Cuban cigars. And this little candy store selling them, were probably selling them for 10, 20 cents or something, 30 cents. They weren't selling for any substantial amount of money. Um, so they've been around for many generations, and they were considered, to be the world's best cigars. So when Castro was rising to power, these cigar growers that didn't want to be around Castro because he was communist, and they had big plantations, you could call them, and were loaded with money. So they took their seeds and they placed them in many sacks, big sacks of seeds, all different kinds of seeds, and they left, and a lot of them went to different countries, but the Dominican Republic was a big one they went to. So they took the Cuban seeds to the Dominican Republic, and they planted them there, but for many years they weren't getting the results they got with the within Cuba because the soil wasn't right, but they kept changing it and changing it. And I have a relative that is in the liquor business, not a believer, and from what I heard, is the good Dominican cigars are probably better than the Cuban cigars. But the Cubans have a forbidden fruit thing to them for some reason, although they're not forbidden in all the other countries other than America. So they don't have this stigma of just America. But the Cubans, Castro used to cultivate his own uh, Cuban cigars that he'd give to friends, political and all that. And I heard those were really something special. But I'll tell you a story. When I was working in San Francisco, I was running a paper company. It was food service disposables, actually. And one of the bosses used to come up because they were in LA. I was running the San Francisco branch. It's a new MBA out of school, and I was running it for them. And they were all Jews. And he'd come up, and he was still, this is 76, 77. He was still able to buy pre-embargo, pre-'59 Cuban cigars uh, in Switzerland, the place called Davidoff. Curiously, I buy Let's see if I could show you this. It's coffee, and they sell it in Israel. It's not from Cuba, although I think Cuban coffee is the best in the world. That's Davidoff. And they sell it in Israel pretty abundantly, but it's not contraband anywhere I know of. I don't know where they get the coffee from, but it's pretty darn good. Freeze dried. Cuban coffee, in my opinion, is the best coffee in the world. Cuban rum, I don't know from, I don't drink the stuff, but people think it's pretty good. And they think the Cuban cigars are good. Anything else in Cuba that's supposed to be really good, I ain't never heard of it. I mean, they might have good bananas or, I don't know, papayas. I have no idea. Nobody ever says anything that they're exceptional or anything like that. So the there was a lot of cigars that were stashed after the embargo, before the 1959 embargo went into effect. They stashed them and they sold them for years. So he used to come into my office, and I had a Porsche at the time. It was a 911S back then. And I used to beg him not to smoke the cigar in my car, and he'd listen to me. He'd say, all right, you know. And then he'd smoke it in the office. But this thing, I don't know, back then he probably paid $5, $7 a cigar. And I don't know, maybe less, $3, I have no idea. These cigars didn't smell like cigars. They were not obnoxious. I mean, they didn't stink. That was the craziest thing. I'll be right back. I have never seen Cuban coffee in Israel. They sell the Cuban cigars. Curiously, Ned Dow got into some problems with friends of his giving him gifts of boxes of cigars. But with Dominicans, they weren't Cubans because they're probably better to get the Cuban coffee. It is so good. It's unbelievable. It's so much better. I mean, I've had coffee from Ethiopia, and uh, they sell stuff. You can get coffee from all over the world here, and it's pretty good. But it's usually rather strong, and Cuban coffee is rather strong. Um, but I've never seen the Cuban. I'm going to look for it again today and see. Maybe there's some liquor stores that sell the rum that have the coffee also. because I don't know, but boy, it's good coffee. But I don't think it's really recognized. They got coffee from so many different countries running around. Colombia, Guatemala, I think Nicaragua, Jamaica has coffee. Uh, Tons of places. It's pretty good generally, you know. It really is. But I use the freeze dried. It's instant. You don't have to mess with it. My wife has a machine somebody bought her that you put the coffee in, and I think it grinds it and doses it, and you put water in it, and it makes it for you. And she buys some good blends of that, but it's rather strong for me, and I just don't buy it, bother with it. The freeze dried has half the caffeine of the real coffee, so I use that. It's enough caffeine for me. So anyway, uh, I think Trump's headed to war with somebody. Um, Now he might be able to persuade Egypt to take some of these Gaza people, but that's the most convenient because you could just put them on buses and bring them to the Sinai Peninsula, in minutes, or maybe it takes a half hour, an hour, or something like that. It's easy, but I don't know what Trump's going to have to do to get the Sisi, the head of Egypt, to do it because these people will hook up with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and help overthrow Sisi. And I think Trump understands that, and I think he may be thinking he's asking too much. If you were going to send him to Jordan, it would be the same thing. Buses, they would pass through Israel into Jordan. That would be easy. But I don't know what Trump's going to do now. Jordan's afraid of him because there's about 11 million pro-terrorist people living in Jordan, and these Gazans would just join with them. So I don't know, but Trump is not one to give up, and I think he made a deal with Netanyahu to this effect. I think he told him, go make the ceasefire. When I'm president, we'll evacuate them out of there. So he's using the deplorable conditions, and he's embarrassing the Arab states that are opposing this because he's saying the whole place is demolished. And it is, it's the truth. And their living conditions are deplorable, which it is, it's the truth. And he said, let's put them someplace so we could rebuild Gaza, which I doubt will ever happen. Who's going to pay for it? It's going to be probably $1 trillion or $2 trillion or $3 trillion. It'll probably take 10 years. It's never going to happen. But not by them. By us, yeah. But not them. So, he's talking getting them out of there where they can live in peace and they can, have, good health conditions, food, and all that. Nobody's taking a survey with the Gazan people as to what if this is what they want. Now, this is very important because it says in Jeremiah 50:51 that America will do evil in our sight. There are American mercenaries. These are companies that hire mercenaries that are American, and they hire American mercenaries predominantly or exclusively, I think. They're in Gaza. Initially, they were there to supervise the food, the humanitarian aid distribution, so Hamas doesn't hoard it. How successful they've been, I'm still waiting to find out. What they're also doing now is part of this latest hostage release. There's 2 batches of hostages coming out this week. I think one is 4 and the other is 3. I think Thursday or Friday and then Saturday or something like that in close proximity. And then I believe they're also giving us at some point 8 dead bodies, and we're going to be releasing terrorists in prison at the rate of 30 or 40 per dead body, which is just sheer insanity. I mean, and then I was signed this, and it's starting to look like what he was trying to do was get the people out of Gaza. But how many could he get out of Gaza? I mean, there's a total of about 2 million. And, where you going to find somebody to take 2 million? That's a large city. Where are they going to keep them? I mean, you might get 250,000 out or 500,000, maybe. I don't know. So I have not a clue, you know. I don't know. Trump is resourceful, and I don't know what he'll do. He could put him in Greenland if he buys Greenland, just create a big border wall and put, small amount of soldiers there to protect it, and then just, I mean, that's a harsh climate. You take people that are living in a rather warm climate most of the year and stick them in Greenland, that's not going to do good. He definitely is not bringing them to America. That I can guarantee you. I don't know where the heck he's going to bring them. I have no idea. This whole plan may fail, and that leaves Netanyahu holding the bag for making a lousy deal, and Trump will just tell Netanyahu, I'm sorry, I tried, I can't do it, I don't know what I can do. And he'll do something else for Netanyahu. What, I don't know, but he'll do something else. But it might cost Netanyahu his career as prime minister. I don't know. All right, let me get back into my notes and see what else I got, and then we'll go with the Bible. Russia and Trump do not appear to be headed towards a friendly ceasefire or anything like that. I'm not seeing any signs of that. I think BRICS' idea is to just stonewall Trump and saying, yeah, you're going to do the heavy sanctions on 29 countries and they're going to do it to you. Let's see how you like that. Don't know what'll happen then. If Trump doesn't evacuate the Gazans to another place, um, Netanyahu might blow the ceasefire and just go back and decide he wants to annihilate them. To keep himself in office, his promise was to put an end to them, to put an end to Hamas, and he hasn't done that. It's not looking that way right now. And he's going to get a vote of no confidence, probably at the end of the 6 weeks. So that's what I think Netanyahu's going to come up with, because Ben Gvir said he would rejoin the government, thus avoiding a vote of no confidence if Netanyahu resumed the war. And Smotrich stayed in the government, but said he would leave the government at the end of the 6 weeks if the war was not resumed, but if it was resumed, he would stay. So Netanyahu is at this point boxed in, and to avoid a vote of no confidence, which he likely would lose, because there's still going to be a bunch of hostages still in Gaza, unless the rest of them are all dead, and then the Israelis are going to rise up against Netanyahu, and they will be a vote of no confidence. Then they're going to be looking for somebody that's not going to be listening to Trump, that's just going to only care about Israel. And that'll turn America against Israel. And that can happen. Ben-Gvir or Smotrich would be those type of people. There's stories floating around that there was 2 soldiers that were operating the Iron Domes that sold confidential information to Iran about the Iron Domes. The first thing, you're dealing with Israel now, so you have to ask yourself, were these guys really selling true information to Iran, or was it a put-on job and they were selling bogus information to Iran? And then Israel goes through the, of arresting them, which wouldn't be real, but there's always a possibility of that, or it could be real. If it is real and they really had access to critical information, which I'm not so sure Iron Dome operators would have, they might be able to tell them silly things like when the Iron Dome works and when it doesn't work, and against which missiles, and little stuff like that. Trump says he is building an Iron Dome, but like I told you, I believe he wants the Israeli Iron Beam, the laser system, and Israel will probably share it with them and start manufacturing. The Justice Department fired the people that were prosecuting Trump in the Justice Department, so Trump got rid of them. See, he's vindictive. Didn't take long. They're fired. The federal ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement agents and police, are setting up checkpoints around America. There's one on I-5, but it's not by the Mexican border. It's probably 60, 80 miles north of the border. And there's a sign, all the cars have to get off the highway and pull into a checkpoint, and then they come over to your car. So you pull into this thing, there's probably a covering overhead, and they probably have 25 to 50 border patrol agents on duty at any one time. And you pull your car in, and they call you and they put the window down. Good morning, how are you today? And they wait to see how you speak. So if you just shake your head, they're going to say, what's your name? Where are you going? Get you to talk. I used to go across to Mexico years ago. They'd ask me a question, I'd open up my mouth, and they'd say, what part of New York are you from? They start laughing because they knew you can't copy that accent. They just tell me go through. They didn't even want to look at any papers. They left. But then they're going to want to check. They want the car registration and the driver's license, and they run them. So they probably scan them and throw them through some high-speed computer that has all the driver's licenses accumulated in the database, and in a few seconds they could get a comparison. they'll bring up the driver's license and they'll look at the picture that comes up in their computer and compare it to the driver's license they were handed and compare that to the person. And if everything looks good, they might ask a few questions and let them go. Just pass. The I understand it takes this checkpoint an hour to do 100 cars, so it's a traffic jam, and they're said to have dogs there too. More than likely, the dogs are drug dogs. They could be. Some dogs might be trained for weapons also. It'd be unusual to have both in one dog. They don't do that. It could be either way. Probably drug dogs, and they're looking for that. They're probably going to find almost nothing on that. And if the people don't match, they could you pull over here, sir? Well, what do you want me to pull over for? Well, we have some questions about your ID here. We're getting a confusing situation. Just pull over a few minutes. And, if everything's okay, we'll get you going. And then there's going to be a few Border Patrol cars, guys coming over, and there'll be dogs around, and they'll smell the car. Basically, the guy's going to get arrested. This is not going to turn out a very high yield of arrested illegals. It's going to create a very big scare tactic and inconvenience the illegals radically, because they're not going to be able to travel on these large roads safely anymore. Now, I don't think these stops are likely to be temporary. I think they're going to be kind of permanent, although they could do temporary stops rather easily as well. It's not hard for them to do that. It really isn't. But they're working on the major highways, so that's going to force the traffic onto the less than major highways, not the interstates, the roads that are 2 lanes each direction or 1 lane each direction. And they might occasionally do small checkpoints over there where they send, 8 or so cars, two in a car, and they run a little checkpoint for a few hours. And then they may go to another location or something. Who knows? But I understand they're going to be popping these up all over the country. And I understand that if you're an American, you should be carrying your ID with you. And I think normally if you're in a car and you have the registration for the car, I don't know, they may ask for insurance, they may not care. And they probably don't care. And if you have a driver's license and the registration and everything matches, you're probably going to be through the system in no time at all. Once you get to them, you may have to wait in line, but I would think the time you would be detained would be at most 2 or 3 minutes. Your accent would come up right. They may ask questions to other people in your car, probably would, to see what kind of accent they have. These people are trained in accents, okay? So if you have a heavy accent from another country, most especially in Spanish, or maybe Chinese or Russian, they're going to get very interested in you. But again, if your driver's license is in the database and the pictures match, they'll just kick you. They'll just let you go. Now, it's probably also prudent to carry a passport with you. Um, just say, yeah, I even carry my passport now, so I don't want you guys to have any doubt in me, and then say, well, let me see your passport. And they might just, they're probably not going to kick you. Kicking means let you go. Because they're going to want to see if you got wants, warrants, and holds on you. So they're going to run everybody. I don't know what their policy is if you got a carry concealed permit. I don't know what and you have a gun on, I don't know. They may ask you if you have a weapon. I don't know what they're doing with that. It'll come out. So that's going to be harassing American people. Remember that there might be a, you're on an interstate and all of a sudden you got a detour, you got to go off into like what looks like a truck way station lane, and there they are, and you got to wait for, 40 cars in front of you. You might be stuck 15, 20 minutes and you're just sitting there burning gas, waiting to get in, you know. Don't know. Years ago, there was a guy on YouTube that would go to these immigration stations, and he'd pull up in his car, and they'd pull him over, and they say, "Put your window down," and he'd put it down a little bit, and they say, "Hi, we'd like to see your identification," and he'd say, "No, I'm not showing you my identification. I don't have to show it to you." Blah blah blah. And he would start debating with him, and he'd say, "I don't want to show my ID. Can I go now? Am I being detained? Am I being arrested?" I used to watch his movies. And they got to know him at Border Patrol, and then the guy that stopped them would talk to the sergeant or the supervisor, and they knew this guy, so they went and looked at him, and then the woman supervisor would just say, "Just let him go." They knew who he was. They probably ran his plates, and it's just an idiot. Let's not waste our time. And they just used to give him special treatment. But then he irritated them enough where they told him get out of the car. He wouldn't get out of the car. So they told him you better cover your eyes, and they took their collapsible batons and broke his windows, and then dragged him out of the car. And I think that's when he stopped. He did a video showing some cuts, very superficial cuts he got when they broke his window. And they just got so tired of him. He was trying to inspire more and more people, and they were arguing with him, and they were saying, "What the heck do you care for? You're an American. We're trying to see if people are American or they're illegal. Why are you going against us?" I believe this goes back to when Trump was president before Biden, and I don't think they're in any mood to play games like that now. So I wouldn't play games with them. I would just carry ID, show them the ID, grin. "Where you going?" "Oh, I'm going to see my aunt. I'm going to a Walmart, Target. I'm going to school, whatever. Where the heck you going?" And just sit there and look at them nicely. Don't give them dirty looks. Be like you're attentive for the next question, and be relaxed, and they'll probably just get bored with you real quick and get rid of you. They're under extreme pressure to find the real American citizens and pass them through as quick as possible. And the bad ones grab. So that's the easiest way to deal with it, is just cooperate with them and as much as you can. And if you have a passport and you carry it with your driver's license, I think it'll go easier. You'll go through faster, because when they see a federal document like a passport, they know those like the back of their hand. They'll be a lot more motivated to get you out of there and make room for the next guy. So Trump is really starting with this, and he's raiding sanctuary cities, and he's getting a yield of deportees. He's really doing it. The U.S. ambassador to Israel said that the two-state solution is dead. This is the new one that Trump appointed. They asked Trump what he thought about the two-state solution. This is, I think, a day or two ago. And he said he didn't want to comment on it, but he'll be talking to Netanyahu about it. So at this point, I don't know if Trump is still interested in a two-state solution. I don't know. We'll find out, I think. Netanyahu knows if he goes in favor of a two-state solution, there'll be a vote of no confidence. He'll be out the door so quick his head will spin. How can Israel release 30 or 40 terrorists for each dead body? I don't know. I mean, Trump still had to be humiliating Israel with that deal. If Trump does prevail on getting these Palestinians out of Gaza, I don't think he'll ever get more than a few 100,000, 2, 3, 400,000 out of there, which will leave down from 2 million. It's going to leave a lot there. How the heck is he going to get 2 million out of there? I can't imagine that. I don't think Trump could cut humanitarian aid to Gaza because many of the Arab states would keep sending it. Saudi would, Qatar would, I don't know, many others would keep sending it over. He could cut it out because he has his mercenaries in Gaza and just refuse to let it in. You know, I mean, but he could do that. That's not going to play well for Trump, but he could do it. All right. We got to watch closely what Trump can come up with for removing the Palestinians so they can rebuild. See, they can't really rebuild Gaza with them there because they're squatting on the site that their house used to exist on in a tent. So the tent needs to get moved to rebuild the house. It's ridiculous. I don't think Trump could do the humanitarian aid cutoff. I think that's too evil to him. I don't think he's going to do it. It's the Arab countries will go crazy. They'll try to send humanitarian aid, and I don't think it's in the realm of possible to cut that off. I think one of the big reasons Russia's losing the war in Ukraine is how Russia's been treating Israel when they were in Syria and giving weapons to the enemies of Israel, using these Russian weapons to attack us. Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran-backed militias in Iraq and Syria, and that's why Russia's losing the war. When you talk to the experts, oh, Russia didn't unleash yet. When they unleash, they'll wipe Ukraine out. Never happened. It's 3 years running, and it still never happened. Russia's got a problem with the Lord, and they're being punished. Ireland got these bad winds the other day. Remember hearing that? Well, they were very outspoken against Israel in a very anti-Semitic way for a few months, and then they got this. Could that be the beginning of the continuing whirlwind of the Lord? I don't know yet. Could the fires in the LA area, which are now down by San Diego, not in the city, but in the county, are they the beginning of I will kindle fires in and around your city? And what about Jeremiah 50, verse 24, where the Lord says he put a snare on America? Well, Trump is obviously executing the snare. I'll read you the scripture. Jeremiah 50, verse 24. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. So now Trump is executing the snare for Jehovah, and he doesn't know it. Okay? It's in the Bible. All right. I'm going to take a fast break, and then we're going to go through Bible prophecy. I'm going to tell you, which is something I rarely ever talk about, one of the dreams I had about 30 years ago when I was in Israel. All right. The Lord gave me some more insights. Oh, the dream. Okay. So I was standing around mid Tiberias outside with some of my neighbors at the time. I was living in Israel. And it was one of those special dreams. And I saw an airplane flying over Tiberias very low, maybe 300 feet up or less even, I don't know. It was inverted, upside down, and it was in distress. The plane was not doing well. And it was a camouflage color, like tan desert camouflage. And I could not tell if it was Israeli, American, or anything else. I have no idea what it was, whose it was, but it was on the way down to crash. And I was with a group of people who was standing out there in an open area watching it, and we were not running for shelter or anything like that. So I don't think we were being attacked by an enemy. I don't know. Some foreign plane could have taken down the Israeli plane. I really don't know. Desert camouflage aircraft coloring is not uncommon in the Middle East. You know, I don't know. Could have been somebody was shooting down an Israeli plane like America. That's where I'm going. Maybe, but I don't know for sure. I do not think the two witnesses took the plane down. Iran having SU-35 jets from Russia may try to take Iranian weapons, put them on an Iranian military plane, and fly to Lebanon to land and give missiles to Hezbollah and use the SU-35s to escort the plane. Now, this opens up a number of questions. Would the Lebanese government let this happen? The answer I have to that is I don't know. The ceasefire with Lebanon has been extended to the 18th of February. And in that time, the Lebanese army is supposed to occupy the south in Lebanon and de-weaponize Hezbollah, and then Israel's supposed to leave. I don't know if Israel will ever totally leave, but Trump said the extension was a good idea. So he's basically sending a message to the Lebanon government that fulfill the terms of the ceasefire, or Israel's just going to stay there. And if you want to resume the war, we'll back Israel and see how you like that. That's how Trump will play it. I don't know what's going to happen. Do I think the Lebanese government are really going to do this? No. I doubt it. And if they did, would they just wait to get the Israelis out and then just leave? Yes. Civilians tried to return to their homes in the south. Israeli military went to stop them, and there was gunplay. And I don't know, 10 or 12 got killed, and 20 something got wounded. It's the other day. So Israel is still fighting in Lebanon. I'm going to tie this to Malachi 3. We're still fighting in Gaza. We're not fighting in Syria. We're not fighting in Iraq. We're not fighting in Yemen. We're not fighting in Iran. But we are fighting in Gaza and Lebanon. And soldiers are at risk. We hear of soldiers getting killed. And we're fighting actively in the West Bank. And soldiers are getting killed and wounded. So if Elijah's out there working as Elijah the prophet, training the Levites, and at that same time, Israeli soldiers are in the West Bank getting killed by the terrorists and killing the terrorists, don't you think the people would ask Elijah to go over there and burn them up? I'm quite sure they would. Same for Gaza, same for Lebanon. And if Yemen was attacking, it's the same thing. Go burn them up. Go put a curse on them. Put a plague on them. Plagues work long distance. You don't have to be in physical proximity to it. And that's not what happens. And there's a reason why it doesn't happen. So the Lord was showing me that you can't really have Elijah emerge working openly while the fighting is still going on, because he is God's Malach, God's messenger, and he's equipped. So is Apostle John. And it would be expected of them to take action. And it would make God look bad if he didn't do it. This is the impression I got from the Lord, that it would look bad for him, and of course Elijah and everything else. So that's why we're not seeing it yet. Now, as I've told you before, redemption is when we're going to get the land back. Recompenses is not getting the land back, it's paying back the enemies. But the recompenses lead to what? What happens on the last day of the year of recompenses? The day of vengeance, which is the first, it is the first day of the year of redemption. So it's an overlap. And when we hit redemption, that's when we're going to get the land back, because we're worthy. But there's a deeper story there, which I'll reveal to you right now. Okay? Deuteronomy 11:8. Therefore shall you keep all the commandments. Let's check that word in Hebrew. Mitzvot. Mitzvah is singular, mitzvot is plural, mitzvot. That's also the way you would say a good deed. See, in the Israeli or the line of thinking, it's a good deed to do what the law says, but they don't. They just say it. Which I command you this day. Okay, so it's a commandment or a charge given to fulfill the commandments, the mitzvot of the law. I'd rather say, the word mitzvot they call commandments, and then the other word, which they translate as commandments, is saw. They're completely unrelated words, yet in the English they make it seem like they're related. It's very stupid. So we'll say mitzvot for the commandments of the law of the Torah. Okay, the mitzvot which I command you this day, and that word is yom, so what it's really saying is command day that may be strong, chatzik, prevail, that you may be, let's say, strong, prevail, and go in and possess Eretz, the land, whither you go to possess it. Okay, so let's get this down. Okay, there's more, but let's just get this done. That you might be strong. Now, what happens when we have everlasting life? We're strong. The feeble people shall be like David, who killed Goliath, a bear, and a lion, and was a great warrior. And the house of David will be like Elohim, the angel of the Lord, Michael, who killed 140,000 in one day, I believe, right? That should be strong. Got it? Not hard to understand. That's in Zechariah 12. And go in and possess the land. Well, after we see the appearing of the Son of Man, and we change, we get the everlasting life. Then we go and get the land. And at that point, the second Exodus should be, the next great Exodus should be beginning. And it'll take them time to get over here. It'll take them time for us to get the land. They're not all going to show up in the same day or the same week, and probably not even in the same month. And possess the land, Ha'eretz, the land of Israel, whither you go to possess. So for this to happen, it's even deeper. Let's keep going. And that you may prolong your days in the land. Well, are we going to prolong our days in the land with everlasting life, getting a double portion? Of course. Which Jehovah we would say swore unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed a land that floweth with milk and honey. For the land whither thou goest in to possess is not as the land of Egypt, from whence you came out, where thou sowest thy seed and watereth it with thy foot as a garden of herbs. So they had these pedal wheels and stuff, paddles that would bring water. In other words, it was a manual artificial irrigation. Israel uses artificial irrigation heavily today, but it's not manual, it's pretty automatic. And they recycle water. It's called gray water. It's not for drinking, but you could use it for the crops. And they put it very low down. It's above the ground, but under the fruit and the vegetables. So, because it's gray water. So, but that'll stop. Okay. Today, from 1940 to today, it's called Zion, which means dry, parched place, and it is. And where it's lush and green is typically because of artificial irrigation, but not always, but very often. It is often. So the water is going to change in Israel. Remember we read, I believe when Yeshua appears, we'll have the early rain, the early rain and the latter rain at the same time. But the land whither you go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, still is, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven. And we're going to get a lot of that. A land which Jehovah Elohim careth for. The eyes of Jehovah Elohim are always upon it from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. Okay. God takes care of this land. Now, when we're in the 2,000-year punishment, I don't think he was taking the same, he wasn't giving us the blessings on the land to the full extent as we will be now that when we get redemption, we get the double portion. So it'll probably be very beautiful and lush, okay? By the time you get up into Gog and Magog, it's described as like the Garden of Eden, okay? And it shall come to pass, you shall hearken diligently unto my mitzvot, I believe. Yep. Unto my mitzvot, which I command you this day to love Jehovah Elohim and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thy oil. So if Israel is not obedient, what happens? The rain doesn't come. And what happens? The crops don't emerge. So if Israel starts to become in disobedience and the Lord's punishing them, then the barley wouldn't appear at the right time when the new year, when the year changes into the next year, because he's trying to scare Israel and punish them. So there are people that run around saying, well, when that happens, we have to add an extra month onto the year. So that negates the punishment, because it tells the people, if it was true, I never saw them do this in the Bible once anywhere, add a month. But if that practice was true, which I'm most certain it isn't, it would make the people think that, oh, God just wants us to add another month. We're not being bad, we're not being punished. And it says, you shall not appear before me empty. Well, that means that they can't, if they don't have the food and they can't get the offerings together, they can't go on the three go up holidays and appear before the Lord. And that's a bad thing. That puts them in more disobedience. This is how God scares them. It's not that you should add a month to the year. That's ridiculous. There's nothing in the Bible that says that. Nowhere. Nowhere. And we're supposed to set the seasons by the moon, not by the crops. Okay? And I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. So the cows eat the grass, and then we have the meat. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then Jehovah's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, unless you perish quickly from off the good land which Jehovah giveth. So the purpose of him not giving the rain, it would be to scare the people, and they would wake up, because they would say, well, we got to appear before the Lord. We need the barley, and the barley's not a beeb, it's not above ground, it's not growing. Oh no, we're in trouble. We can't appear empty. We're messed up now. What do we do? And then they go into mourning and fasting and prayer, and they would come out of it. But when you start moving it to a 13th month, it defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it? Therefore shall you lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand. Okay, that's talking about the villain. Okay, all right, so let's get back into Malachi 3. So what happens in Malachi 3 is Elijah trains the Levites. Now Moses was training the Levites with Aaron, I guess you could say, and then it passed to Joshua or Yahshua, which is not Yeshua, it's Yoshua. But anyway, moving along. The Elijah's coming to train the Levites. He's got to get them out of the Talmud stuff and got to get them into the Old and New Testament. They have to be worthy. They have to be walking in righteousness. So, if that was not the case, the offerings and the sacrifices at the altar would not be considered acceptable to the Lord because they would be hypocrites giving the offerings, the Levites and the Kohanim. So they've got to be righteous. And the bad ones, the people that are going to be more than happy to be evil and Satanists and idol worshippers and adulterers and murderers and rapists and crooks and conmen, they're going to be cut off. Okay? And you read that in Malachi 3 and 4. They're not going to see the appearing of the Son of Man. They'll be gone, I believe. And because you see they're gone in Malachi 4, and after they're gone, ashes under your feet, you see the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. So they go first. So the Levites are correct, and God takes the offerings as acceptable, pleasing unto him. And that brings the blessings of the law on us, which was mandatory for them to do in Deuteronomy 18. Pretty much, it didn't spell it out in that depth that I did, but that's what it means. And that, when we achieve that, that's when the two witnesses burn the enemies up on the right hand and the left and all around. And those are not the same enemies as Zechariah, as Malachi 4, which is the internal enemies, the bad ones in Israel, the 2/3. So the siege might be going on during the time Elijah is training the Levites. And Trump may very well be involved in this siege. In other words, Israel isn't listening anymore. And because the temple's here and Elijah's and Apostle John and signs and wonders, they're afraid to go in and invade Israel because they don't know what the heck Elijah and Apostle John are going to come up with. So they lay a siege to it, which means they don't enter the land that Israel has now, Judah and Jerusalem. They remain on the borders. And to get Israel to go apostate and turn against God, which would be to introduce great sin to Israel, then they could kill them. That's Satan knows these things, or Satan would think they could kill them. So they lay a siege around them. So Israel can't ship anything out, bring anything in, can't go out, can't leave. Putting them there, putting the siege there, has another very important feature. It stops people from traveling to Israel to see the temple or to meet Elijah, etc., etc. And all that having Elijah and Apostle John working openly has associated with it, they can't get into Israel. Does that make any sense? So the siege may be for a while, and it starts reducing the food supply in Israel. While the people, as well as Elijah, as the Levites are being trained. But I think the people don't really get trained totally until after they see the sign of the Son of Man and they change. Then it happens. Then they go into mourning and everything else. But So I think Elijah starts out by concentrating just with the Levites, and that would include the Kohanim, which are of course Levites also, but they're descended from Aaron. Moses and Aaron were brothers, and Moses was a Levite, so was Aaron. So that's how it works, I think. So we have paper ceasefire right now, but not a real ceasefire. So soldiers are getting killed and killing others, and the people would say, "Come on, Elijah, come on, Yochanan, Apostle John is Yochanan, go, help our boys, save them, help, and that breaks the sequencing of everything, and those things don't really happen until the offerings are right. Then the blessings of the Lord come, and then everything comes, including Yeshua. Will come after that, I believe the sequencing would be. So the blessings of the Lord not only give us a victory, they bring us the appearing of the Son and the Son of Man. And we have never had the blessings of the Lord since Yeshua rose from the dead. The Herod's temple had 2 eagles on the entrance. Herod's temple had 2 high priests. Okay? These guys were rotten. They weren't living their life correctly. They were hypocrites. This is what Elisha's teaching of, not how to slit some animal's throat, teaching them how to live their lives, how to do everything correctly, not the mechanics like a chef in a kitchen, not that way. I mean, maybe a little of that, but it's basically how to live their life and how to teach the people to live their life and so forth. And when they get that right, then the Lord says, okay, the offerings are pleasant, acceptable, and blessings of the Lord come, boom, and then everything starts happening. That's how I'm seeing it. So again, it's back to the law. But we also must remember that Moses' law has changed. In Acts 2, there were congregations under the apostles. There's no apostles in Moses' law. There were no congregations like that. Okay? Many things changed. All right? People didn't have the Holy Spirit corporately like they do after Pentecost, where before the high priest, the king, and the prophets were the only ones with the Holy Spirit. Now the body of believers corporately, across the board, has the Holy Spirit, the real believers. That's a big change. A big change. But where are the congregations and the apostles? It says he set some in the church, apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, and evangelists. Where are the pastors, the teachers, and the evangelists in the Old Testament? They're not really there. The Levites were sort of like an umbrella thing for that. Okay? It's changed. So, but we still need to do the sacrifices for the different offerings and stuff that's required at the right time. And then when we get these done, then God can sit, and it'll make God pleased with the way it goes. So this is another example. Whom the heaven must receive until the restitution of all things, speaking of Yeshua. Elijah comes and restores all things. Yeshua said that. And this is one of the all things that Elijah is restoring, is getting the Levites back on track. You should see all this. Now, my personal commentary, I am of a heavy heart that was still waiting. When I say I'm a heavy heart, I don't have the right words for it. I'm so sad that we have to keep waiting. I have no idea. Maybe you do, because you feel the same way. So just keep praying. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. But I think we need to see the fighting stop before it happens. Now, I don't know how the heck the fighting is going to stop. Let me give you some sneaking suspicions I have. They're not sneaking. to give you some ideas that I think we have. In Jeremiah 49, Edom, which is Yemen, gets to be a devastated wasteland. Okay, it's not habitable anymore. Gaza really isn't habitable in its present condition very much, by the way. It is and it isn't. You know, all right. And in Iran, which is referred to as Elam in the Bible, which is technically southwestern Iran. Now, some people say it included Iraq, pieces of Iraq, and Syria. Some don't mention that. So you got a deviation. Some don't mention Iraq, just Syria. So it's divided about this, okay? Elam is southwestern Iran, which curiously is where a lot of the missile bases are, and the Lord says he will break the bow of Elam. Well, the missile is an arrow, and the bow is the missile launcher. Think about it. God, if he said, I don't know, 3,000 years ago or whatever, he says that I will break the missile launchers and their missiles, people would know what the heck he's talking about. They would think it's probably a catapult or something. They also had great big bows. They used to shoot spears sometimes, like I think it was a foot bow or maybe mounted on a ramp. Or I don't know. They had all kinds of things. You could say a catapult is a missile launcher because the projectile it launches is a missile. But it usually wasn't shaped like an arrow. It was usually a round ball, and they made grass in there with tar, and they lit it on fire and launched it, stuff like that. So, if it is just southwestern Iran, it's still Iran, and it says it'll be destroyed by our enemies. Well, any enemies that try to destroy southwestern Iran are probably going to have a real war with Iran proper and have to destroy it too. So I would expect the whole place will go. Could I be wrong? I don't think I'm wrong about that. It says all the people shall have to leave the country. So it's going to be a devastated mess by our enemies, plural. And they will scatter to every nation in the earth, all the nations, and the sword shall follow them, because of all the many, many years of grief and agony and misery they've caused on Israel. Was that plane I saw flying upside down, an SU-35 from Iran, flying upside down? Yeah, maybe Iran flew it into Iraq, and Iraq had an airway, and then they take off from Iraq and come to Israel. Yeah, it could have been. I don't know. Could have been from Turkey. I don't know. I don't think it was from Turkey. So, yeah, my heart is heavy, but this is what I think. Now, we don't know what's going to happen if Trump does mess with Iran. He's going to probably have to mess with the Houthis and probably Israel too, because the Houthis will likely rise up again as Iran goes into being attacked and go after shipping American vessels, try to launch at Israel, possibly launching at Saudi Arabia, which would cause Trump to attack them. And we don't know what exactly is going to happen. We're not told the fine details. I wish we had them. And that's the best I could come up with, so I don't think it's far away. I don't know anymore. I told you that many times. I think we're very close. What does very close mean? I can't give you a super precision on this. I don't know. Not many people today. I don't know why. All right. Let me check my notes. I think it's a reasonably decent assumption that the Houthis or Yemen or Edom, same thing, and the Iranians need to go before we're going to have any kind of peace. That Elijah's going to need to work with the Levites because they'll try to interrupt it with violent missiles, drones, attacks. Uh, and that's what I think. Now, they're not, Yemen is not surrounding Israel, neither is Iran. So the other countries might still have their terrorists and haters in them that will rise up at Zechariah 12 for the siege. So I don't think we're really going to have the peace till they're gone. And that could happen very fast, but I don't know. Guys, I hope it happens this week, but I don't know anymore. If you think I'm depressed about this, I'm not really depressed. I'm sad. I'm sad. So I'm giving you my take as best as I hear from the Lord. I could pass on to you. And I think it's horrible that we have to keep waiting, but I don't think we have a choice. We have to respect the Lord and respect His timing is perfect, and there's really nothing that we could do about it. And I do think the siege will probably cut off tourism. So, for those of you that would be planning to come here, I think you have to come when Elijah starts working, when he appears anyway, before the siege. And the siege may go for a while. It's going to depend how long it takes for Elijah to train the Levites, and that's going to depend on what type of an anointing is there. I mean, if God really wants to lay a heavy anointing on them and stuff, it'll be rather quick. They're still going to need some basic doctrine teaching, you know. I think the reason the people are not in the chat is because I talk not so favorable about Trump. They want to hear Trump's going to make us all millionaires, we're going to dominate the world, and we're going to wind up becoming what Hitler wanted to without killing the Jews. And we're going to wind up becoming the greatest country on earth, and everybody's going to have a Jaguar in their garage or a Lincoln, or, you know, we're going to have big houses and all that. Yeah, this materialism nonsense again. And, you know, I don't know if Trump really has a way out when he does the sanctions on the other countries and they do it back on America. I really don't know if that's survivable by Trump and America. I don't know. If it is survivable, for how long? You know. He supposedly had a fight with Elon Musk and threw Musk out of the White House. Musk had an office in the White House, so he had great access to Trump. And then he started nagging Trump for stuff that was good for him. And Trump got bothered by it and threw him out of the White House. But I think that was just a hissy fit. I think they're probably back as friends. But Musk, they're saying, just wants only what's good for Musk. That's the view from here. So whatever you do, pray and pray and pray that God launches the two witnesses very, very soon. That's my best advice. Okay. Pray also for me and my wife for a peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our heads and bodies. So the prayers, I would say, are very important, and that's all I could say. It's on you guys. Pray, 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 pray. Don't ever think your prayers are not going to get results, because I tell you they will. God can do anything. Nothing's too hard for the Lord. So pray and ask for this. You have not because you ask not. Pray, pray, pray. Pray for me and my wife, Rivka, for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of her head and body, and pray for Chief for healing for him. He's having some more issues with his back leg again, and I'm giving him some red light therapy, but I'm using a very low dose. Well, it's not that low dose. It's shaped like a flashlight, a little narrow flashlight, and he doesn't mind that. When I use the big one, it blows wind from the fans and it's noisy, and he goes crazy. He thinks it's going to eat him. This he lets me do. He just looks at me real suspicious, but he doesn't complain. He doesn't growl or run away or anything. So please keep the prayers going for Chief and for the birds and the dogs. Pray for their peace, safety, protection, and joy and healing. And pray for better videos, the peace of Jerusalem. And if you got any comments or questions, write me. If you think something's different, that I'm not getting it right, write me. You got my email address, the bottom line down in the description box, and it's rather high up in the chat. And I'll engage with you about this. I talk to me if you want, And it's the best I could come up with, and I know it's not the news we wanted. Is Elijah will show up tomorrow, but pray. We got to keep praying for this. Don't think, it's not from the prayers. Just don't think that. Just keep praying. Okay? It'd be nice if you hit the thumbs up button, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I hope you got something out of this, and I'm just delivering it the way the scriptures tell it, what I'm being shown by the Lord, and that's all I can do. Is there a chance I'm wrong and Elijah's going to be working while the missiles and the drones and everything are falling? There's always a chance. I don't see it. Nobody I spoke to told me that it makes sense that would be happening, and the Lord showed me why it wouldn't make sense. So, doubt it. All right, kids. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I wish I had better news in terms of time frames. I really do. I'm out. Thank you.